If your business doesn't really feel aligned to you, eventually you become burned out on it. Eventually you're like, I'm using my most expensive resource of all, which is my life force to do this thing. And here's the truth. The struggle is absolutely guaranteed, but your success in any one endeavor is not guaranteed. Hey, good morning. Let's get this party underway. I'm super pumped for today's sesh because we are going to talk about why your action is not getting the kind of traction that you want to have in your business. This is one of the first things that I really start to explore with people when they're working with me privately because it is that important. So I'm excited about today's session because we're going to be diving into something that's like way bigger than strategy. It's way bigger than the technology, the AI. It's bigger than social media. It's bigger than the news. It's really talking about your sense of purpose. Because if you're building a business purely on your grit and just with, black and white goals that are maybe not even all that specific, we need to really get you into alignment, right? Because that's just going to feel off. And if it's felt off for a while, it's going to keep feeling off until we have this very conversation. It is that important. So if you're here and you're here for it, I'm super excited to see you. So, okay, let's do this. You can actually have the funnel, you can have the posting schedule, and you can have the appearances in local networking events and things like that. But if your business doesn't really feel aligned to you, eventually you become burned out on it. Eventually you're like, I'm using my most expensive resource of all, which is my life force to do this thing. And here's the truth. The struggle is absolutely guaranteed, but your success in any one endeavor is not guaranteed. And I learned that from Tom Bilyeu. I've been working with him this year in his $1 Billion CEO program. And I've been able to get some really significant distinctions in realizing that sometimes the blood, the sweat, the tears, the embarrassment, the burned money, the credit, the debt, all that kind of stuff, it can really weigh on you. And even just reading other coaches' posts about how great their life is and getting into comparisonitis, it can all end up being heavier and heavier and heavier. So what do we do about it? Because look, it's not enough for you to have this silver bullet of getting lucky one day and getting a viral message or a viral, finally getting noticed, finally getting discovered, right? You need a real strategy, right? And you've got to be able to pick yourself up when you fall down, right? I think Denzel Washington likes to say in a lot of interviews, fall down 7 times, get up 8. But what causes you to do that? This morning I was actually reflecting. on what is it that causes perseverance and persistence and positivity, right? Because as a coach, we do need to exude positivity. We do need to exude our own personal self-leadership. But as I was putting my makeup on this morning, I was like, no, but Amanda, really, what has made the biggest difference? Honestly, when I was starting my business, that would have absolutely destroyed me. I would have gotten so self-conscious about the internet going out. I would have been like, oh my God, you picked the wrong tool. And I would have been feeling really guilty about wasting your time on that. And, the self-talk would honestly get debilitating to the point where I would maybe stumble my way to the end of the live stream. This is a decade ago, but I would stumble my way to the end of the live stream. And then I would hang up and I would just get so negative in my self-talk about how I'm never going to figure it out and it's never going to work out. And just being totally honest, do you have a friend that ever does that? They make a mistake on sending an email out, or they misspell something, for goodness sake, or they surround themselves by the grammar police, right? If you've ever been surrounded by the grammar police or the people who are just waiting and it looks good on Instagram. It's because I'm not on the Wi-Fi. But my point is that perseverance is really like, how quickly can you get back to the baseline to do what you came here to do? How quickly can you do that? And I want you to just actually take a moment right now and actually reflect. Your business is, yes, it will make money. Obviously, it needs to make money. We need to design it to be profitable from the very beginning. But it's also a reflection of how you show up to hard things. It's a reflection of how you show up for other people. It's a reflection for how you show up to consistency of a project. It's a reflection of your management. It's a reflection of your self-regulation. It's a reflection of all of these things. And therefore, it's also a reflection of what you're here to create in the world. Not to put like an enormous amount of pressure on you or anything like that, but it's actually a very big deal that you want to have a business. So as I was saying before we had the internet blippity bloops, I was really reflecting this morning. I'm like, what has made the difference? And one of the things that's made the difference for me, I'm really confident of this, is my sense of responsibility towards providing for my family. Financially, specifically, right? I know what it's like to go without. And I know what it's like to feel financially handicapped. But I also know what it's like to work in a job that absolutely drains your being, because it's exploiting your ability, but it's not necessarily feeding your soul and activating your leadership and activating your creativity and activating the very best of who you are. And when I think about that, I'm like, wow, there's so many times that I've heard no. There's so many times that I've been told that I was too ugly, too stupid, too this, too that, to my face, right? Over the years, and I'm still here. And I know that a lot of people receive lesser threats or lesser problems to their ego, and they still quit. Why? Because they haven't resolved that their business is part of a bigger purpose, right? Here's my my root belief is whether I succeed in this business or another business or supporting somebody else's business, I am very clear on the purpose of the pursuit of my excellence in my career. I'm very clear that when I perform at my top ability in a coaching session, or when I'm here with you live, or when I'm writing something, when I activate that, I have full faith that that is part of my purpose. My purpose is to say things out loud that are not necessarily popular. Okay? It's not popular to have a woman run a business that's big enough to retire her husband. That's not popular. Okay? The thing I get met with the most is like, well, what does he do? What's his contribution? And I'm like, not that it's your business, but if it was your business, he's living in his best version of self on purpose, right? And it's not really for anybody else to decide what that actually is, And when I think about my own business, I'm like, I want the woman or the man who has had this message that they have to be someone else or do something else in order to be a provider, to know that there's another way that you can do it. And it's literally no one else's business how you decide to build your family and build your career. I also really believe, they clearly never met Chris, right? I also really believe that more people would be more successful if they actually knew how to make money, right? That it's not about, I get a job and I make money. No, you're being compensated for something that your one client, your employer, finds valuable. That's what it is. So if you don't like your job, it's because you're not doing something that you also value. There's a misalignment there. So it's not that you need to quit your job. It's not that you need to hate your job. It's that I want more people to realize you are spending the majority of your life force towards your income earning potential years. Don't you think you should know how to manage your money? Don't you think you should know how to go and get a new employer at a drop of a hat because you know how to network and you know how to have those important conversations, right? But most people don't even know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. I was never taught how to do that, right? And I've made so many mistakes along the way because I've got taught a lot of really interesting things, but I didn't really get taught the confidence. I didn't really get taught the planning for profit in advance and the planning for my time in advance. I didn't get taught any of that stuff. I had to stumble my way through it and figure out a lot of things, even though I spent a lot of money on training. Because you know what they usually train you on? They train you on a gimmick. They train you on a vehicle. They train you on one process that does one tiny little part, but you're not here for one process that does one tiny little part. You're here to change your career, your life, your impact. That's what you're here to do. And if you're not here to do that, then you're probably going to hate me as a coach because I have a holistic perspective. And when I come back to like what motivates me, what fires me up, it's that I have kids. And I know my husband hated his corporate job. And I knew that if I could just figure out how to work both in my genius, so I was more happy more often, and I could still be productive financially, that my life would change. And guess what? It has. Now, does that mean it's been sunshine, rainbows, and puppy dogs? Heck no, absolutely not. But you know what? I was just talking to my sister about this on the weekend. This is how you know you're aligned in purpose. If you're aligned in purpose, you have permission to fail and you have permission to figure things out. If you are not aligned in purpose, you will fail and then you will hide. You will fail and then you will feel shame for your failure instead of being able to just process it and come back to baseline and come back to what the purpose is in what you're doing. When you have alignment of purpose, it allows you to access creativity and experimentation. When you're not aligned in purpose, or if your purpose is just super weak, like just I'm there to collect a paycheck, that's all I'm going to do. You're not going to access your creativity. You probably are going to be very blamey, right? You're going to blame everybody else for not having everything all set up, right? So you're not going to have that creative competitive drive to figure it out, right? Because your purpose is weak. So I want to help you with that like right now, today, by bringing this all into focus. So here's this very simple framework. And I've been through similar frameworks like this. So if you're like, oh, I've heard this before. Okay. How many times did you quit on yourself last week? Right? How many times did you quit on yourself this week? So if you've heard it before that you need to know your why and you need to deepen your vision and everything, but you quit more than one time last week, you gave up, you walked away, you chose to scroll instead, then listen up, because hearing a thing is not the same thing as learning a thing. Learning a thing is when you actually take that knowledge and apply it to your behavior. You change what you do as a result of what you know. And then you get a new result, right? And whatever result you get, win or lose, that's called wisdom, right? Yeah. So that's what I've had to do over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And honestly, sometimes I get sick of it. I'm like, when's it going to take? When's it going to hit? When? And when I catch myself in that question, I have to stop myself and say, it's going to happen right on time. It's going to happen right on time, because here's the real truth. Nobody tells you this. No one says this online because it doesn't sell. Luck plays a factor. So you can learn everything there is to know about all the little nuances and the details, all the pitfalls, all of these different things. And even still, luck will play a factor. Now, the question is, are you developing skills to be able to handle the reality that luck plays a factor, right? Luck plays a factor. Luck plays a role. And are you at the same time developing the skills, the capabilities for the things you can control? I think a lot about that serenity prayer, right? I always get it wrong, but it's essentially like, God, give me the wisdom, to do what I can, but to know the difference between things that I cannot change and all that kind of stuff. I said it so wrong. If you want to share it in the chat so I can make that right. But the gist of it, I think about the gist of it all the time, which is like, can I control this? Can I control this? Can I control the environment? Can I control the creation of it? And Seneca has a great quote, which I do remember a little more verbatim, which is essentially, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? So luck plays a role. It absolutely plays a role. But your ability to access the opportunity that is in front of you, that comes from preparation. That comes from being prepared to have the conversations, to be able to follow up on promises, and to be able to connect deeper in relationships, right? Yeah. Yeah, it does help you get unstuck. So let's do this quick framework because I want you to really take this as seriously as possible. And I'm doing the same. I've been spending a lot of time on purpose lately, which is why I'm doing a live on it. But the first thing, and this is so getting missed right now, is reconnect with why. Why? Why do you do what you do? Right? Why did you start coaching in the first place? Why did you decide to pursue excellence in this area? Of all the things you could have done, because you could have been a rocket surgeon. That's a joke. But, you could have done anything with your precious mind, right? You could have done anything with your heart, your soul, your calories, right? You could have done anything with that. Why are we here now? There it is, Vicky. Thank you. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you so much. I obviously need to put that one on my wall. I think about it all the time, right? So yeah, that's a good one for the wall. So, but why did you do this? And for me, finances played a role not because I wanted to be Scrooge McDuck wealthy and take baths and, dollar bills, but because I knew that part of being a healthy, wealthy, rich family meant I had to address the financial aspects of what I was pursuing in my life, right? I couldn't put it in this like lead box and ignore it. I couldn't just put my head in the sand. I had to really specifically address that, but I also had this simultaneous requirement, which honestly felt like a competing requirement, that I needed to work and operate in my zone of genius, right? Because I had learned to do a lot of things, and I hope this doesn't sound very braggadocious, but when I was in my consulting career, I was one of those people on the team, they could throw at anything. I could do really intense data analysis, but I could also put together really compelling presentations, and I was also super good with people, but I was also really good at just like hunkering down and getting the thing done. And so I had a really broad set of skills that I could access, and whatever my bosses needed, I would just kind of fit into that keyhole. But the trouble is that I was feeling less and less and less autonomy over my contribution, right? And it's crazy, but 10 years into my career, I was actually feeling like I had less freedom than I was an analyst that didn't know anything, right? I just knew how to say yes, and I knew how to do a few things. And I think the moral of it is that you as a human, you have this boundless capacity to learn and focus on things and become whatever you want to become. But the question is what role is your personal freedom playing in designing that? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So Vicky, I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing. That's so cool. Okay. So the first thing is you got to reconnect with why. So I want more heart-centered, powerful people who love lifting other people up. I want them to know how to monetize it because I want them to be able to do more of that and less of the other things that are in their lesser talents, right? And by the way, whether you get a job as a coach or you are an entrepreneur as a coach, I bias to entrepreneurship generally because for most people, it gives them the most options. And that's actually really what I'm about. I never want you to feel like you have golden handcuffs, like you have to do this thing. I don't believe in that. I think that's terrible. But most people, they just kind of go through life not questioning it. And I hate that. And that's one reason I really love coaching too, is because coaching, it really, it opens up the consciousness. It opens up this part of you that wants to pursue something bigger that's really on your heart. But so many coaches are just broker jokers, right? They're promising the sun, moon, and stars to people, hoping that they'll get liked. And it's a big popularity contest. There's no money model behind it. There's no advertising strategy. There's certainly no sustainability involved in it. The coaches aren't taking care of themselves. They're feeling burned out, disillusioned, bitter, all of these different things. My why is let's solve that with education and community. That's what I'm using. Because to me, those have been the things that have made the biggest difference. And you know what? I'm a big techie girl. I love tech. I have yet to meet a tech, even really awesome AIs that are informed by my best coaches. I have yet to find a tech that does the same thing as connecting like we are right now. Right? And then that kind of bleeds into the second thing, which is auditing your current model. What's your current approach? Right? What do you have on offer? If you don't have something to offer the world, then you can't be mad that the world's not giving to you. Let's write that one down in our notes today, okay? If you don't have something great to offer the world, then you can't be mad that the world's not giving you anything. Law of reciprocity, I guess, but it just sort of makes sense. If you don't have a way to like open the doors, the invitation to a longer term relationship with you, then what is informing your expectation that you should be paid more? It should have happened by now. You should be getting more referrals. What's informing that? Right? So we got to audit your offer. The second thing is like whatever you've got on, and that means your offer. And by the way, your offer, next thing is pricing. Is your pricing matched to not the energy exchange, but the expectation of your market? Your market has, every single one of us has a different market that we're serving. Your market has a certain capacity to invest. And the thing about my audience and the people that I've worked with is so often I'm meeting them when they are up to their ears in debt, usually. And it's because they did what so many of us do. You know, it's like they hopefully went into very expensive programs, spent a long time in those programs, and they didn't get any behavior change. You remember what I said earlier about the definition of learning? It's like if it doesn't actually modify your behavior, you haven't learned yet. And there's programs that are $10,000, $30,000, $50,000 that people invest in before they come to me. So some of my programs are shockingly inexpensive in pricing. Shockingly so. Like you can be in the experts network with me for like the price of a cup of coffee a day. For real, right? But that's not where I put my energy of like one-on-one exchange. I don't price it at that level because if I price at that level for that, I can't continue to show up and be in good energy myself. And there has to be a level of investment for that one-on-one attention. But what I did is I built like a ladder of different pricing points so that people could work with me at the level that actually made sense and matched with their financial reality. So let's look at your pricing. And then the other thing in your model we're going to audit is what's your schedule? What's your schedule? So if I was to jump into your calendar right now, where is 80% of your time going? Right? That's a real question. Where is 80% of your time going? Right? And for most people that I talk to that they need to monetize, they have a lot of responsibility like I did, they're really stressed out, they're really struggling, they're following the model of people who don't have those pressures, right? They're following the model of coaching as consumption. It's just consumption all the time. Now there's a balance point, right? Because you've got to still get the education and the clarity of what you should be focusing on. So you still need to balance the learning piece of it. But learning should never be more than 2 hours in your day, right? Because we want to spend 6 to 8 of those hours applying what we're learning, applying, changing our behaviors and shifting what we're actually doing. Right? Yeah. And if 80% of your time is going to connection and networking, Vicky, that's awesome. And it also explains why you have so much success so far, right? Because you've connected with people and you're having real conversations that convert. So if you're already doing that, then your next level is how do I more efficiently connect and network with a broader range of people, right? You're probably ready to level up your marketing presence so that you can do that in a more efficient way, right? And then that speeds up the number of sales conversations you get to have, and then that speeds up your revenue. But what most people try to do is they try to skip that. They try to skip the connection. They try to skip the conversation altogether, and they want to jump right for the 7-figure model, right, with a 4-figure mindset. Yeah. All right. Last step in the framework. First, we reconnected with the why, then we audited your current model. So we looked at your offers, your pricing, and your schedule as the main things, right? Because those are going to be the most affecting of your calendar and your wallet. And when I see people quit, it's because they run out of money and they run out of patience. They run out of the time, right? So if you want that to not happen, then you have to design your success. You can't just sit back and hope that it works better, right? You can't just try to outwoo other people, right? The woo can help because the woo can, regulate your nervous system. It can help you activate courage. It can help you do things without overthinking it. Like the woo can help. But if you're just all woo with no plan, get ready for tears, right? Eventually, right? So the third piece of this is we need to cast a 3-year vision. And oh my gosh, oh my word, the number of marketers who are like, no, everything's changing and it's going to be completely different in 2 years. I think the consequence of all of that Armageddon style messaging is it's causing people to pause because they're freaking out, right? So they're procrastinating, they're falling out of purpose. There's plenty of studies right now that are showing that people are losing their sense of meaning in what they're doing, right? And at the same time, there's a lot of studies that are showing that our addiction to content consumption that's like low grade, I'm trying to do high grade stuff, but low grade consumption is just going up and up and up. There's a war for your attention right now. Your purpose is about aligning to intention that you know where you are headed in the next 3 years, because that's going to help you stay focused on what really, really matters. And so where do you want to be? Not just financially, definitely get that number down, but also energetically, relationally, spiritually. Where do you want to be in 3 years? And how does that compare to where you are, right? Purpose-driven businesses, they don't just throw more gas on the fire and hope for the best, right? They're not into like all this hustle culture and all this kind of nonsense. They're moving with intention. And that intention is how you project your confidence. And when you have that confidence, people go, I can accept leadership from this person because you know what? They're not insane, right? They're steady. They have intent. They are moving forward with purpose. There's rhythm to what they do, right? That builds trust. Trust is absolutely necessary for listening to anything else that you have to say, including marketing conversion type messages, right? How do you do this? How do you write this down? If you don't have my ultimate coaching blueprint, you should definitely grab it. I would say that your biggest tool is always going to be paper, getting things in black and white and clarity. And the thing is like, you can write your business plan and you can have it be 1,000 pages long and you've missed the point of having a plan, right? So I recommend more like a 1-pager that you can have on your wall that's really clear with the things that matter to you. So you might have your finance goals on there. You might have your family goals on there. You might have, I actually just came across one that I did in 2016 and it was just this grid. And it had my priorities as deliverables just listed there. So I would start with the 1-pager, and then I like to write down every campaign, every strategy, everything that I'm trying. Gets a folder on my Google Drive, gets a master strategy document that talks about what is my hypothesis? What do I think is going to happen? What am I going to do to have that thing happen? How am I going to measure success? And I do that for every campaign in my business, right? Yeah. So good. All right. So if you're ready to build a coaching business that's not just profitable, but very deeply purposeful, I really want you to come and join us in the First 5 Club at a minimum. Okay. Now we have a program that's a little more advanced. If you've done any systems implementation, you might actually want to be in the Experts Network, which is the next level up. So if you're interested in either of those, just send me the word momentum and I will send you details. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about what stage you're at in your business to figure out where you might fit the best. But the club and Experts Network are both competitively priced. There's an investment, of course, but they're competitively priced because we want you to be really successful. We want you to be systemic in your growth and strategic and on purpose so that you can be connected with the people that you're meant to impact. And you can do this instead of whatever that was, right? All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me for today's session. We're going to have the full replay up in the Clients Over Chaos group, which is absolutely free. You can join there at next5clients.com. That's next5clients.com. And you can request access and get access to all of our Monday trainings. We're going to be back next week. And let's see, what are we talking about next week? So we're going to be talking about the 3 hidden things that are slowing your business and how to fix them fast. So we're going to be talking about 3 invisible blocks that show up the most often with businesses that are, striving to scale, wanting to grow, and they tend to keep even the highest of achievers stuck. And I'm going to be walking you through identifying them and, of course, how to remove them from your business. So I hope you'll join us. Bring a few friends, and we will see you next week. Have a great day.